you haven't seen the previous video in this series, follow the link on your screen or click the link in the description or pinned comment below.
Seconds of logos. Also Comcast and Miramax.
Alright, that's just padding the sin count, bro. I mean, the Comcast and Miramax logos were included in the 50 seconds of logos gag that literally nobody except you cares about.
While they didn't give Aaron Corey an apple, that scarf might as well be one, because it makes him look straight up like an asshole.
Sinning someone for trying to keep warm in Midwest fall.
For years he's been kept here to be studied. I suppose the state has lost interest in discovering anything further.
I get this is supposed to be a direct sequel to the original 1978 film, but Michael Myers disappeared at the end of that film after Dr. Loomis
shot him 6 times!
So how did Michael get back to the hospital? And yeah, they try to retcon it a bit with the Hawkins character, but you, movie, and you better believe this will not be the only time I bring up why this being a direct sequel to the original doesn't work at all.
I'm very heavily inclined to agree with you here. I absolutely detest the bullshit they tried to pull with this series, which culminated in Halloween Ends, which doesn't actually end the series because they're producing yet another unrelated Halloween. However, I do have a problem with you skipping over that they did try to explain some things. So I'll ding the ding, but won't raise the sin counter.
Oh, make no mistake, he's aware. He was watching you as you arrived.
How? Maybe one thing they discovered about Michael Myers was that he literally has eyes in the back of his head, or eyes connected to the security cameras when they drove up?
Considering the film didn't show the shape until now, the doctor could be speaking literally and Michael simply turned around, which makes movie sense since they don't show his face. Or you could take this as the shape is just cosmically aware, being that he's almost certainly supernatural. Right? When I said this a few years ago, people lost their marbles. But there's no way you watch these movies and come to the conclusion that Michael Myers isn't a low-level superhuman. That's entirely why we call him the Shape. He isn't a person, he's the personification, or the shape, of evil, and this was said by John Carpenter himself. So eat a dick, audience.
I've been following your case for years and still know very little about you.
Probably because all he did was kill his sister and then years later showed back up and killed a trucker, a couple of teenage girls, and some horny dude named Bob, who may or may not have been a pedophile. I mean, his murder spree story wouldn't even get a whiff from My Favorite Murder, so why is this podcast bothering with it? Now, if you had 9 more movies worth of murders...
I see where you're going with this, but actually I disagree. Michael was already a patient since he was a child for killing his sister. That in and of itself was worthy of dissecting, but then he escapes, goes on another unexplained killing spree, gets shot multiple times, and doesn't die? I'm sorry, but 50 Cent got famous for less.
You feel it, don't you, Michael? You feel the mask.
No, he sees it, remember?
Yet again, more evidence that Michael is supernatural.
Also, we're really going to say Michael has this big connection to a mask he stole from a hardware store back in 1978?
Yes. Next question.
Also times 3. This might make for great television, but it would make for a terrible podcast. You'd just hear some guy saying bullshit like this, and he could be in his mom's basement reciting this as far as you know.
He is standing with and talking to one of the world's most notorious serial killers. I gotta say, I'd thoroughly enjoy listening to this over men versus women rants or a Joe podcast. Budden or Rogan, you choose.
Also, out of 11 films, we have 3 named simply Halloween? This seems stupid. Should have just bit the bullet and called it Halloween H40, because it's one Josh Hartnett and a girl from the creek away from being just that.
No, I agree. I hate this naming convention, and it's so prevalent in media. You know, like Doom, Scream, and Shaft. The only positive thing I can say is that at least it's not DMC Devil May Cry. That game is literally named Devil May Cry, Devil May Cry.
$3,000 sound.
Whoa, why start at $3,000? Why not try like $1,000 first and see if that does the trick? Movie doesn't know how to lowball.
Probably because they're not pieces of shit that are trying to get over on someone. Imagine thinking not lowballing someone is sinful. I think even the devil is shaking his head at you.
I believe in Michael Myers, a deranged serial killer, but the boogeyman...
He's not a serial killer, right? Especially if we're, let's all say it together now, making this a direct sequel to the original film. Maybe a spree killer or simply a mass murderer, but not a serial killer, since he killed just about everyone in the same goddamn place and with one exception on the same goddamn day.
According to the definition provided by the FBI and the fact that Mike killed his sister years before the second event, he is by definition a serial killer.
I showed him the mask. It was nothing. No response, nothing.
With the exception of a random gust of wind, a bunch of other inmates cackling, and a dog barking. But yeah, nothing out of the ordinary.
But that's moving the goalposts. He didn't say any of those events you mentioned didn't happen. He said he got no reaction out of Michael.
Wasn't it her brother who, cold-blooded murderlated all those teenagers?
Murderlated.
What? I kind of like that portmanteau. He murdered someone and mutilated others. Kind of like what I do with your videos.
No, that's just a bit that some people made up to make him feel better, I think.
Why would Michael being Laurie's brother make people feel better? Of all the reasons people would make up about a story, why would making them feel better be the first thing you think of? This is the I did it to protect you of urban legend coping.
Well, that line does make sense when you think about it for more than a few seconds. The shape goes around killing people seemingly for no reason at all after returning from a mental institute that he was placed for killing his sister. So the fact he does kill his sister makes people think the reason he went after Laurie is that he was the sister killer. This makes people feel better in the sense of them being able to make sense of what happened. It's similar to the way people treat your videos and the way they react to mine. You've never claimed you were satirical, but somehow it makes people feel better about making a channel as silly as yours so big if they but believe that you are kidding about everything you say.
We consider ourselves a comedy channel, first and foremost. And, there was a famous director who didn't like us, and then people defended us by telling we were satire, and then he went off on the word satire and the definition of that word, and I have never publicly claimed that we are satire.
You are living proof of a coping mechanism spread through false information.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Let us not forget the Everything Everywhere All at Once video where Jeremy started dick riding Jamie after she said she loved CinemaSins. I just think it's funny how fake people change up, that's all.
I guess it's a heavy night for Haddonfield hospital transfers, huh? Weird they decided that Michael Myers and a whole bunch of his fellow patients needed to get moved on the same night.
I don't think that's weird at all, and I'd go as far as to suggest it's efficient. Besides, we all saw the opening of this movie where they showed they treat Michael the same as everyone else. You only think he's special because he's the antagonist of a film you're watching.
Yeah.
Judy Greer looks as irritated as I am that she's being wasted in yet another terrible movie.
Whoa. I have my gripes with the direction they took the Laurie Myers connection, but who said anything about this movie being terrible? That is not an opinion held by the majority of fans, and this is quite literally the best of the new trilogy.
I mean, I get that they didn't think the bus was going to crash and Myers would escape, but...
And let me stop you right there, because that is pretty damn good reasoning. Michael hadn't tried to escape in over 40 Halloweens. They had no reason to believe he would try this particular one.
He continued stabbing.
And as we sinned before and will sin again, he curiously looked up at the knife instead of the person he was stabbing.
Actually, what you said was that he was stabbing the air, not that he looked at the knife. Since we're nitpicking.
Let's face it, the only reason the podcasters existed in this movie was for exposition and to be murder fodder for Michael Myers so he could get his mask back.
And you're saying this is a bad thing? I see why you think this movie sucks. You don't know how to Halloween.
You have no security system, Karen.
Sure, Laurie broke into their house to prove a point. I just don't know why she didn't just make a phone call and explain that Michael is on the loose first. And I'm not sure why she thought this would win Karen over.
Well, the reason she didn't do that is because the family treats her as if she's crazy. Every time she brings up Myers, everyone tries to make her look unhinged. You would have seen that had you paid attention to the dinner scene.
I saw him in the shape.
Mom.
I wanted to kill him.
Okay, that's enough, Laurie. That's enough, Laurie.
Okay, I think maybe this is a little bit too much for you, huh? Why don't we go for a walk, all right?
I can't.
Mom, look at me. Look at me.
Should we,
really hate to say I told you so, but...
Now you tell me. Does this look like a couple of people that would take a phone call from Laurie seriously?
Hey man, you were just at a gas station and an auto mechanic shop. You couldn't have picked up a weapon there? Or do you have rules about carrying weapons with you to your killing site? Just think, if this tool shed isn't left comically open during Halloween, then what?
Oh, come on. This movie showed you the shape has preferences. It's entirely why he hawked down the podcasters to retrieve his mask. He prefers to kill with a chef's knife.
I don't have my stethoscope. I need it. I'm going to get it. I'll be right back. You're not going to believe that they were in my pocket the whole time.
They meaning your stethoscope? You went back in to get a stethoscope, and they were in your pocket the whole time?
I get the they part of your criticism, but you're clearly unaware that a stethoscope can fit in a doctor's coat pocket.
I am not for 1 minute going to believe that a woman that is this into Halloween isn't dressed up and doesn't have any decorations inside the place. She just carved 67 pumpkins and put them on the front porch, but otherwise she's not obsessed or anything.
Who the heck decorates the inside of their house for Halloween? Isn't the whole purpose to decorate the outside to attract trick-or-treaters? And no, the people on Instagram that began shopping for Halloween stuff during the 4th of July don't count.
Also, while it's disturbing that Michael is killing a bunch of randos in this neighborhood, it's done with the least amount of suspense possible. It's a fun one-shot and everything, but in the original Halloween, Michael seemed almost curious about who he was killing. Creeping around in the shadows and the edges of the frame, his presence always felt even when he wasn't there. This is just murder porn.
But isn't that the point? In the original Halloween, we were completely unfamiliar with the character, and that added to the mystery and mythology of that character. This is after 40 years of Halloween films where we all know everything there is to know about the character. So the reason people went to the theaters was specifically to watch the Shape put these mofos in a blender.
Oh no, the closet door won't close. That's a closet's main function. It's right there, right in a word. Anyway, I'm sending this because does anybody remember what Hitchcock said about suspense? Something to the effect of, if you're having a conversation and a bomb blows up, that's a surprise. But if the audience knows there's a bomb while they're having a conversation, that's suspense. Somehow this scene invokes neither surprise nor suspense. So let's go back to this scene for a second. Dave starts up the motorbike, creating a loud noise, which would make anyone who's ever seen a horror movie realize when Vicky calls for Dave, he won't hear her. However, he's already tipped the bike over and can hear her perfectly fine. So why'd the movie even bother with that if the noise wasn't ever going to be a factor? It would have been classic horror movie trope nonsense, but goddammit, it's our kind of horror movie trope nonsense.
But I have you over numerous videos sending the character can't hear anything because of headphones/loud noise trope, so forgive me if I don't believe you would have actually liked that.
Movie wants us to believe that Michael recognizes Laurie, a random babysitter he stalked one night 40 years ago. Halloween purists can call the plot twist dumb all they want, but do you know the only way this scene works? He's her brother, and Halloween 2 actually happened!
I agree, and simultaneously dislike that you're padding the sin count because it's something we already knew would happen from the beginning. I guess you know what that means.
I'm Michael's doctor, Ranbir Sartain.
You're the new Loomis.
I love how this movie just throws Sam Loomis's name around like everyone knows who that is. Like there are people out there that would use that name for a Twitter handle or something.
It's called fan service, Jer, and considering I already mentioned there had been 11 movies over 40 years at this point, there are people that caught on to this. Not everyone is CinemaSins, and thank Zeus for that.
Do you know that I pray every night that he would escape?
That sounds insane. Sounds like you have a reason for that. Why would you just stop before giving the reason?
Well, for all intents and purposes, the Shape has driven Laurie up a wall. She's clearly not a well-adjusted individual and is completely different to how she was in 1978. And nobody listens to her anyway, so I would also dramatically pause if I were her.
You see, this is what has intrigued me through my studies. How does a crime like Michael's affect him?
That is really interesting.
Is this not almost the same point you were making about the suspense behind the Shape's killings? I'm confused. Do you want the mystery or the murder porn?
I'm a doctor. Lock your doors.
That would make about as much sense as me saying, I'm a dick on YouTube. Make sure you eat a sandwich.
Ridiculous, right? But not as ridiculous as that laugh.
All right, pick your poison. I like a revolver. They never jam.
That's 100% not true. The cylinder gaps can get blocked and prevent the cylinder from rotating, and or the axle can begin to unthread as you shoot, just to name a couple things.
Nice copy pasta. Your wife's boyfriend write that for you? While it's true that revolvers can theoretically jam, in practice, it's an incredibly rare event that usually results from not properly caring for the firearm. When something is exceedingly rare, it's okay in common parlance to say never.
Get away from the body. Stand back.
I'm not going to say it again. Step away from the suspect. Step away.
Man, just the stupid twist so hard. And yet again, we're killing off the most interesting characters in the movie.
Since when are the cops the most interesting characters in a Halloween film? Look, I love Remember the Titans. I do, what with all the racism and such, but just because you like the actor doesn't mean their character was at all interesting. I mean, didn't Guy Pearce in Iron Man 3 teach you anything?
Okay, supposedly Michael drives a cop car to Laurie's place, and in the time it takes Ray to walk outside, he manages to get out of the car without being seen and stage a murder scene where he's turned one of the cops' heads into a jack-o'-lantern. And I'm saying that the speed at which he did this, plus the know-how, is more terrifying than the act itself. Do you know how long it takes to hollow out a human head for this purpose? Like, a super long time. I could barely get through half of the job, I mean, I've never done anything like that before in my life, so what do I know?
Hello, FBI? Yeah, we found him.
how? This movie seems to forget the podcasters were here and that we saw a giant cage door in front of the main door. We should be seeing some part of that cage coming through the glass at the very least. How did he punch through that and the glass? If he's that strong, he should have just battle rammed the door down.
And you seem to have forgotten Ray just opened that door to go outside to check on the dead cops, and that all Laurie did was close the wooden door from the inside upon seeing the shape in this scene.
Yep, it's your grandmother's shooting range. It's not all that scary, maybe just to you, but the audience saw this in the daylight, and it simply does not matter.
Jeremy clearly has not played Resident Evil 7.
I'm not saying a woman in her late 50s fighting a man in his early 60s can't be exciting, but I am saying this scene of a woman in her late 50s fighting a man in his early 60s is not exciting.
Sinning this scene, that's worth these many sins.
See, this is cool because she was looking down on him in the first...
Skip!